We're having. Okay, good morning. Good Boker Tov. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Hopefully they will not persist. Welcome back to Parsha Perspectives for today. I want to thank our generous sponsors, our Parsha series sponsors for the year, Becky and Katz and family, in memory of David Grossman. Our learning is Lila Nishmas, Becky's father, David ben Menachem Monish. This morning is also sponsored by Carol Lerman in honor of her mother's Yortzeit Leah Bas Betzalel. Should have an Neshama, should have an Aliyah. And by Howard Koenig, our dear friend, in honor of his mother's Yortzeit, Barbara Koenig. Her Neshama should have an Aliyah as well. And of course, our learning is dedicated in honor of our extraordinary soldiers of the IDF and the pilots of Israel's Air Force. They should have success and triumph. In honor of our heroic brothers and sisters in Israel who have been running in and out of bomb shelters. They should have the peace and serenity and safety they deserve. And we should be able to welcome all of the hostages home. Okay, we're learning Parsha Shlach of any Parsha. We spoke last Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe. Mishnah Zalman of Liadi said a Yid, a Jew, needs to live with the times. To live with the times doesn't mean reading the newspaper or wearing the latest fashion. To live with the times means to interpret what's happening in the world based on the Parsha. The Parsha has a message. The Parsha is speaking to us. What's going on in the world around us, how we respond, how we should feel can be found in our Parsha. That was true last week, where Hashem makes several promises of our victory in war. And that's true this week, Shlach, which is all about love and affection for the land of Israel. Never, God forbid, speaking negatively about it. Never be intimidated by those who are trying to prevent us from conquering or living there. This Parsha also is speaking right to us. This is the Parsha of the times. God speaks to Moshe, Shlach lecha anashim v'yasuru es eretz Canaan. God says, send for you men to investigate, to spy the land that I'm going to give you. One man from each father's tribe, send one leader among them. We all know the story. Moshe sends spies to investigate the land. They come back and give a terribly negative report. And the rest is history, so to say, because that night of that negative report, when the Jewish people reacted by crying, they reacted by grieving, and reacted by as if it was a catastrophe, when in fact it was Hashem's promise. That night was designated as a night of crying in perpetuity, and indeed it is the night on our calendar of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. Shlach lecha anashim, says Rashi. Lo nismacha Parshas Meraglim, the Parshas Miriam. Rashi is always focused. Our rabbis are always trying to learn from the juxtaposition, the contrast of why one section appears next to another. So we ended last week's Parsha with Aaron and Moshe speaking. Aaron and Miriam speaking negatively about their brother Moshe, and we pick up this week with the spies investigating the land, speaking negatively about the land of Israel. And it's not a coincidence that notion of gossiping, speaking negatively, critically, judgmentally, is what binds the end of last week's Parsha and the beginning of this, says Rashi. Parshas Meraglim, the Parshas Miriam. Miriam was struck. Miriam was secluded. Miriam spent time in solitude, all because she needed to rehabilitate herself from that mistake, speaking negatively about her brother. And these wicked men, they saw the consequence of her negative speech, and they should have learned. A Jew doesn't gossip. We don't hypercritical. We don't speak negatively. We see the positive. They should have been able to walk away and learn that lesson. They saw it firsthand, and yet, what do? They come, they see Israel, they come back and report negatively about it. Says the Tifer Shmo Beramam, Yesh Limud Mikan, Afilu Arishas Gedola Kamaisa Meraglim, Shorash Hatvi Aleim Umashalolach Muslim Masharau. What a powerful insight. What's the most egregious thing that these Meraglim did wrong? Why were they and we so accountable for their mistake? Where did they go wrong? If you would have asked me, I would say, where they went wrong was coming back and speaking negatively. They should have said, look, God told us he's going to take us in. God told us he's going to have our back. God told us he's going to take care of us. You could take that to the bank. We don't have to see anything. We don't have to question anything. We have no doubt or uncertainty. Hashem's word is good enough for us. Instead, they came back and spoke negatively. There's giants. I don't know. We're intimidated. They're powerful. They have fortified. But that's not what our rabbis were critical. They weren't critical of their speaking negatively. What are they critical of? They could have learned the lesson and they failed to do so. Where they went wrong wasn't coming back and speaking negatively. Where they went wrong was they should have lived their life, experienced what was happening around them, and extrapolated and extracted lessons. They should have lived life in color, not in black and white, in high definition. They should have lived life in such a way that they were astute, they were analyzing, they were perceptive, they were experiencing the world around them, extracting the lessons for life. Even the most wicked person, if they don't learn from what's happening all around them, because a Jew is always where we're meant to be. Nothing that happens to us or around us is chance, random, or coincidence. Whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we observe, whatever is happening is meant for us to learn a lesson. It's meant for us to grow, to stimulate growth in us. So, yes, we're accountable for where we go wrong, but fundamentally, why do we go wrong? Because we could have and should have listened to the lessons that are being broadcast all around us, and we fail to do so. There are people, and we can learn from their mistakes. We can learn from their consequence and accountability. There are world events, and we can learn lessons, derive lessons. And when we're not listening, when our antenna is not extended, when we're not focused, then that's where we make mistakes. And Hashem afterwards says, you're not accountable for the mistake. You're accountable. Why? Because you didn't learn the lesson. This is a big chil Hashem, to have closed our eyes from the message from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbeinu Yonah writes this in his Sharei Tshuva. Yesh avan asher lo tikna tinka nefesh mimena ubilti torahu ve'ena ritzuya ad asher hamavis yafred beino ve'en haguf asher chata bo. The Rabbeinu Yonah says this is a terrible malady. It's a terrible illness. Those who are so closed, those who are so apathetic and complacent, those that are not growth-oriented, growth-minded, they're not looking, they're not listening, they're not learning. They're simply coasting through life. And if a person is coasting through life and they feel finished and fixed, if they're stuck where they are, then they're never going to grow. And they're going to make horrible, sometimes irreparable mistakes. But if a person has a growth mindset, they're looking, they're listening, they're learning. What's the world broadcasting? What's the message from me? What can I take away from what I'm watching, from what I'm seeing? Then we're going to grow as a result. And even though you can't say it's that comparison, because after all, Miriam was speaking about her brother Moshe, and Moshe, God himself testifies, himself endorses Moshe. Moshe is Hashem's loyal servant. And when Miriam spoke that way about Moshe, she was doing it for a good reason. She was bothered. Why did her brother separate himself from his wife? Because he's a prophet. He can't have intimacy. Miriam says to herself, I'm a prophet. Hey, Aaron, aren't you a prophet? And yet, we don't refrain, we don't abstain. Why does Moshe feel he has to? It's not fair to our sister-in-law. It's not right. She was doing it for good intention, for good reason. The Meraglim come back negative. It's critical. They're trying to stop us from trying to ascend to the land. And even though there's such a fundamental difference between the two, you could give every rationalization, every justification. You could explain why you wouldn't learn the lesson. We should live our lives with our eyes wide open. Live your life looking, listening, learning. What's the message from me? From what I just read, what I just saw, what can I extrapolate? I heard a story about someone. I saw something in the news. A certain video way and I learn. The kind of the lesson that should have learned. Miriam was critical. Miriam was negative. It meant something. It made a difference. It harmed. It injured her brother. She had a consequence. They should have learned. We speak. Yes, we have a mission. We're being sent to investigate the land. When we come back, how we speak. That a good intention suffer consequence. So all the more so. That's what they should have learned. They should have learned how important it is, the power of speech, power of language. They should have extrapolated that lesson. Vinay. And then Rishon in Manhattan. Are we still streaming? We're still streaming. We see people in Manhattan. Ratzim la'avodasam im cheshek. If you've ever been in Manhattan, you don't see anybody walk slowly. Everybody, New Yorkers, they've got a stride. They've got a skip in their step. They're always rushing. They're always running. I got a meeting. I got a place to be. I got to get somewhere. I have something going on. Manhattan, everyone's running to make the next deal, the next meeting, to make the next dollar. They're always running, rushing, pushing, using all their energy, all their effort, all their time. So if you sit back and you're having a coffee and you're watching the streets of Manhattan, you're watching everyone rush and run, say, what's the lesson from me? How can I apply myself? What can I learn from this? Shum Banabam also used to say about the yeshiva, about the mir in Brooklyn. There was a makolet, a little bodega in Brooklyn, or at least where I was in Washington Heights, you'd call it a bodega. That was open, a little supermarket, a little mini market. So if it was snowing outside and the boys all wanted school to be canceled, close the yeshiva, no school today. He'd say, if the mini market's open, we're open. If they could be open, the stock market's open, we're open. If you live your life looking around saying, what's the lesson? Where can I draw my inspiration, motivation? What can be what pushes me? You can live life with your eyes closed. You're not paying attention. You're not looking. You're not listening. Or you can live your life with your eyes open. Absolutely everywhere. It's all a question of how we're living life. I'll skip ahead and come back. Pasuk Yud Gimel, Perik Yud Gimel, Pasuk Tezvav, Tezayin. And now the Torah provides the list. Who were the 10 heads of tribes? And this deserves to be understood and unpacked. We have previously. You can listen later online. These aren't 10 ordinary individuals. When we talk about their failure, these wicked leaders who so misled the Jewish people, they led them in the wrong path, the wrong direction. They came back with the wrong report. We're seeing this in real time. What does it mean to love peace? To not attack Iran? Or do you really love peace because you're willing to attack Iran and take away their nuclear capability? Which is really making America great and safe? We're seeing this in real time. There are world leaders. Are they on the cusp of breaking out nuclear weapons? Or do you want to believe, they've been saying that for years. It's not true now either. Self-hating Jew, Bernie Sanders, who's not far from, in my mind, damaging the Jewish people like Neturei Karta, who's calling war crimes, what Israel and Netanyahu are doing, calling for America not to be helping, because he says, we should negotiate. Look, we're negotiating left. What if these ballistic missiles that have been landing in Israel, what if they were carrying nuclear warheads? What if they were smuggled into American cities? You see that there are people who mislead, they're misguided, they misquote, and they sound persuasive. They make compelling arguments. They can make everyone paralyzed with fear and stay up all night crying. So, lahavdil, these meraglim of our Parsha are not the lowly, I don't even know what words to use to describe them, of today. These meraglim were the Nisim. These are the heads of the tribes. This was Rav Soloveitchik and the Lubavitcher Rebbe and Rav Hutner and Rav Moshe and Rav Yaakov, the 12 of them going to do this mission. How could they fail so miserably? How could they make such a fundamental mistake? How could they so negatively impact the trajectory of Jewish history and of the Jewish people? It's a very powerful and difficult question, and one that we've studied in the past we're not going to look at now. But here the Torah gives us their names. Vayikra Moshe LaHoshea ben Nun, Yehoshua. And Moshe calls Hoshea ben Nun. What name does he give him? Yehoshua. Now we'll see in a moment that we called him that already. So the truth is he already gave him that name. So this is what Rabbi Sachs says in the Rabbi Sachs Chumash. A change of name in the Torah always implies a change of character or calling. Avram became Avraham. Yaakov became Yisrael. When our name changes, says the Rambam in his discussion of Tshuva, the second parak of Hilchos Tshuva, it's as if we or someone else were saying, you're not the same person as you were before. Why do we change a name? Shino Hashem. God forbid a person has a terminal illness. God forbid a person has a dire circumstance. We call to the Torah and we change, we add their name. Why? Because the Gemara says, Shino Hashem, changing a name is Shino Mazel. We want to change their Mazel, change their name. They're not the same person. So whatever they deserved, whatever they were suffering, whatever was determined for them, Shino Hashem, change their name. Could this hint at what gift, what strength of character Yeshua and Kalev possess that the other 10 spies do not? Kalev comes from the tribe of Yehuda. And Yehuda, we learned, was the first Baal Tshuva, the first penitent. When he said, Tzadka mimeni, when he overcame that test, when he admitted that she is more righteous than I, he matured. He was taught a lesson by his daughter-in-law, Tamar. Yehuda is the clearest example in Bereshis of someone who takes adversity as a learning experience rather than a failure. Anyone who, like Yeshua, has experienced a name change has likewise been inducted into what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. It's the name of her book. I've quoted it several times. I love it. You could have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. She has an entire book, and it's all wonderful, where she distinguishes in life between those two mindsets. And they determine so much about our lives. A fixed mindset, finished, stuck, has nothing to learn, gets paralyzed by crises because doesn't see the opportunity, versus the growth mindset. All of life is a learning opportunity. It's all a platform, a stage, and a classroom to grow. So every crisis is an opportunity to learn and to fail forward. And you never lose, you learn. They know their qualities are not predetermined. They can change and grow. People with a growth mindset do not fear failure. They relish challenges. They know that if they fail, they'll try again until they succeed. I do not think it's a coincidence that the two spies with a growth mindset are also the two who are unafraid of the risks and trials of conquering the land. Hashem does not ask us never to fail. He asks of us that we give our best, and He forgives us when we fail. All He asks is we acknowledge our failures. This gives us the courage to take risks. This is what Yeshua and Kalev know, one through his name change, the other through the experience of his ancestor Yehuda. Alone among the 12 spies, Yeshua and Kalev show leadership. They tell the people that the conquest of the land is eminently achievable, not because they're all powerful, but because God is with them. It's a paradoxical but deeply liberating truth. Fear of failure causes us to fail. It's the willingness to fail that allows us to succeed. Let me read that again. Fear of failure causes us to fail. It's the willingness to fail that allows us to succeed. So, says Rabbi Sachs, Yeshua's name is changed from Hosea to Yehoshua. A name change is a new identity. Yeshua says, I'm not done. I'm not finished. I can grow. I can learn. I can change. I can evolve. I can develop. I can make progress. I'm not finished. I'm not finished. And it's that growth mindset, a Yehoshua and a Kalev, that enable and empower them to be willing to take the risk to say, we got this. Alo na'aleh. Let's climb. Let's ascend. Hashem has our back. We can do this. This is the growth mindset that Shmuel Berenbaum is talking about as well. The growth mindset of, that's what Rashi tells us our rabbis were critical of. The mistake of the Meraglim, of the spies, what they're accountable for is not the negative report. What are they most accountable for? They're most accountable for not listening, not learning from what they saw happening around them. At the end of our life, it will be filled with mistakes we've made. That's okay. Hashem has a tolerance for failure, for making mistakes. We have to own up. We have to admit. That He can live with. What He has no tolerance for is He'll say, but why'd you make that mistake if you're only listening? If you're only learning, if you're only watching? I was sending you messages. I was broadcasting. I was hinting. I was trying to elevate you. Why weren't you listening to the bodega and staying open as well? Rav Sachs has another beautiful insight that I want to begin with. He says the following. The spies, what were they sent to do? You have to pay very careful attention to the language of the Torah. It's never random. It's always carefully curated by Hashem. So what's the language of the Torah? Shlach lecha anashim, send men. We learned last year, the Kli Yakar points out, this never would have happened if we sent women. The whole Chet HaMeraglim and the 40 years of wandering was all because we sent men. Women would have asked for directions much sooner. We would have gotten there earlier. 40 years to get there. We're still paying the price. No, he gives a deeper reason. Women have optimism and faith and hope. And the men are negative and pessimism and despair. They see the best and the men see the worst. They see what could be and the men see what they feel is. And it wouldn't have happened. Shlach lecha anashim. It should have been women and it never would have happened. V'yasuru. The word v'yasuru is a bookend in our Parsha. Because the Parsha ends with the Parsha of tzitzis. The tzitzis that men wear, the small beged, the big beged. And what do we say? Why do we wear the tzitzis? Uri'isim, so we see them. It was chartem, and we remember. Velo sasuru. And we're not going to investigate other unfamiliar foreign temptations, ideas, ideologies. Lo sasuru. Don't investigate foreign ideologies to our own. So that's the bookend of Parsha Shlach. We begin v'yasuru. These men are being sent to investigate. Ends with tzitzis, v'lo sasuru. Don't investigate. Coincidence? I think not. We've spoken about this in the past as well. Why are those the bookends of our Parsha? Why is tzitzis the antidote to the meraglim? We're not going to review it right now. But Rabbi Sachs calls our attention to that word. V'lo v'yasuru, the men are being sent to investigate. What other word could the Torah have used? Biblical Hebrew has two verbs that mean to spy. And they are luragel, from which we get meragim, and lachpor. Lachpor means to dig, to dig. Sometimes someone calls me. A shidduch was read to my child. Someone made a suggestion for a shidduch. Could you dig into it a little bit? What do I go to the garage and get a shovel? What does it mean to dig in? If you ask somebody, could you dig into it? Could you look into it? It means to investigate. Could you investigate? I'm not spying, but could you investigate? So the Torah could have chosen lachpor, dig into it, or l'ragel, spy, but neither of these words appear in our Parsha. Instead, writes Rabbi Sachs, no less than 12 times we encounter the rare verb lasur. This word was revived in modern Hebrew, where it means and sounds like to tour. Latur, if you read it like a Sfaradi, in the Israeli, lamed, Sav Vav Resh, Latour sounds like to tour. How do you say a tourist in modern Hebrew? Tayar. A tayar. There's all the difference between a tourist and a spy. The Malbim explains the difference simply. Latour means to seek out the good. Think about it. What does a tourist do? You don't choose a destination to go to because you're going to spy. And you don't choose a destination to go look at everything that's wrong. Streets are dirty, people are unfriendly, food's no good, nothing to see. That's not where you choose to be your summer vacation or your destination. Where do you choose? What do tourists do? They go to the beautiful, the majestic, the inspiring. They don't spend their time trying to find out what's bad. Lachpor, l'ragel are the opposite. They're about searching out a place's weakness and vulnerabilities. That's spying. When the brothers come before Yosef in Egypt to buy food, he accuses them of being meraglim, a word that appears 7 times in that one chapter. He also defines what it is to be a spy. Yosef says to them, you've come to see where our land is exposed, where it is undefended. The exclusive use of the verb lasur in our Parsha, repeated 12 times, is there to tell us that the 12 men are not being sent to spy, but only 2 of them understand this. The reason 10 of the 12 men come back with a negative report, because they have misunderstood their mission. They believe it is their role to find out where the land is exposed, where it's vulnerable, where its defenses could be overcome. They look and cannot find. The people are strong, the city is impregnable. In fact, they're meant to see what's good about the land, not what's bad. So if they're not meant to be spies, what's the purpose of their mission? Says Rabbi Sachs, I suggest that the answer is to be found in a passage in the Gemara Kedushin Daf Mem Aleph that states it's forbidden to marry a woman without seeing her first. It's a prohibition. Torah says you're not allowed to get married without, how could you get married without seeing the woman first? Because there's a concept of getting married through agency, through shlichus. You could send a shliach, an agent, and you say, do me a favor. There's a singles weekend up in New York. I had it. I've been on enough dates. I can't do this anymore. I can't talk about where I went to yeshiva, how I spent my summers, what I think about what's going on. I can't. Here's a ring. Go find a woman and put a ring on her. If you find her attractive, you think she's smart, you think we'd have chemistry between us, I am empowering you to be my agent, and you betroth her on my behalf. That doesn't mean that the agent is doing it so that when I see her, then I marry her. It means when the agent gives her the ring, she's married immediately to the Mishaleach, to the one who sent the agent. He has the power of attorney, the power of agency, the power to make them married even at that distance, even on his behalf. In fact, the Mishnayos and Kedushin have a fascinating discussion. Because what if the agent is talking to the woman, trying to find out a good shidduch for the one who sent him, and by the time he's done talking to her in the little speed dating, after 6 minutes, he says, I think she's better for me. So what if the agent actually proposes instead? How does that work? The Mishnayos all deal with. So the halacha is, you're not allowed to do that. If I met and spent time and saw a woman and then send the agent and say, go betroth her on my behalf, it works. But says the Gemara, Osir, a man is not allowed to marry a woman without seeing her first. Why? Were he to marry without having seen her first, he might, when he does see her, find he's not attracted. Tensions will rise. The idea, first see and then love. The Gemara says it'll be a violation of Yahavta l'reacha kamocha. Because what if the agent comes back with the woman, knocks on the door, and says, I'd like to introduce you to your wife. And the man says, ugh. Really? Ugh. That's not at all what she looks like from the picture. She doesn't look at all like the photoshopped makeup artist, hair done, cropped picture. So the moment he says, ugh, she's going to feel horrible. And he will have violated ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, he'll violate loving your neighbor as yourself. So says the Gemara, know what you're getting into. Know who you're proposing to. Don't go forward unless you know, because otherwise it is simply unfair to the other party. Tensions will arise. The idea first see, then love. Same applies to a marriage between a people and his land. Jewish people are traveling to the country promised, but none of them have ever seen it. How then can they be expected to muster the energies necessary to fight the coming battles? They're about to marry a land they've not seen. Says Rabbi Sachs, the 12 are sent, lasur. Their mission is to be the eyes of the congregation, letting them know the beauty and the goodness of what lies ahead, the land that has been their destiny since the days of their ancestor Avram. Moshe has told them, the land is good, it's flowing with milk and honey, but Moshe has never seen the land. They need the independent testimony of eyewitnesses. And in fact, all 12 fulfill that mission. When they return, the first thing they say is, we came to the land you sent us, and indeed, it's flowing with milk and with honey, and this is the fruit. But because 10 of them think their task is to be spies, they go on to say the conquest is impossible, and disaster ensues. Only Yehoshua and Kalev have in fact understood the mission. So we have different words that we can use. Lachpor, l'ragel, is to spy. Latour, lasur, is to be a tourist. Go tour. Go be a tayar. Go be a tourist. Only two understood the mission. When your mission is to see the good and the positive, when your mission is to find what's right, you'll come back and you'll tell everybody, you've got to check it out. The Ubers cost nothing, and there's tons of food, and there are fascinating things to see. When you're going as a tourist, you see what's right. When you go to spy, you're looking dafka for what's wrong. So, Chevra, what's our mission? Everywhere we go and what we do, everyone with whom we interact, what's our mission? You travel, you go to the family simcha. You travel, you go to the event, you participate. Are you going to spy or are you going to tour? If you have the tourist mindset, you're going to find the good. You're going to come back with what you can celebrate and be nostalgic about. And if you're going to spy, to investigate, you'll always find what's bad, and you'll find what's wrong, and you'll find what's off. Says Rabbi Sachs, it's a matter of understanding the mission. The mission of a Jew is to tour this world. Lasur, tour the world, and extract the beauty, and the admirable, and the redeemable, and the positive, and the good. Come back with something good to say. If you bring the mentality and you think your mission is to spy, then you'll suffer from the missing tile syndrome. That was last week's Parsha. They became a nation of complainers. There are people who are positive people who have a legitimate complaint, and then there are complainers. You could complain the verb, or you could become a complainer, the noun. The Torah has no tolerance for the complainer. The complainer wakes up in the morning in a bad mood and has a complaint, They just don't know yet what it is. They'll find it. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out what they're miserable about, what they want to complain about. But they know one thing, they've got to complain. The positive person wakes up and says, everything's amazing. Everything's going to be amazing. By the way, I have some feedback. I have constructive criticism. We can make this better. So our mission is not to be misonanim, which is hitpael, the reflexive. Never be a complainer. Be a positive tourist who has some feedback. You're allowed to fill out the thing at the end of your stay, the survey. It was amazing. It was wonderful. Here are all the things that were great. This little tweak would have made it better. The tourist is allowed to fill out the survey, but do you bring the mentality that the mission is to be a tourist? We're tourists through life. We're tourists at our Shabbos table and our dinner table, everything that was good, everything that was right, in the food and the people. We're tourists on the family vacation. We're tourists at the family simcha. We're tourists when we come to shul and we interact with the community. Let's tour. What's right? What's good? What can we positively experience and remember? And if you come as a spy, let's find what's wrong. Let's catch them. Let's be hypercritical. Let's be negative. 10 of the 12 didn't get it. They all went to do the same thing. But 10 misunderstood the mission. Only 2 got it. And that changed the course of our history. So Moshe calls Hoshea ben Nun, Yoshua. Says, all right, hold on, let's go back. Shlach lecha anashim. The word lecha. When else in the Torah do we see the word lecha? And we're told lecha is for your own good. Lech lecha. Avram's first test in the Torah is lech lecha. Zakt Rashi, the tovas chalanascha, it's for your own good. So where's the lecha in this mission? It's a big debate among our commentators. Did God send us? Did God demand of us to send spies? Or did he allow us to send spies? Did he say, look, I know you haven't seen the land. You're still coming out of Egypt. You're still a slave nation. You got some questions. Go check it out. I'm okay with that. You're good to go. You don't have to, but if you want to, if you'll feel better, feel free. Did he allow us or did he send us? It's a big debate. But the word lecha, if lecha normally means as in lech lecha, for your own good, then how can lecha here mean for your own good? Shlach lecha, how was this for our own good? So Rav David Feinstein answered, and he said, had the Jewish people entered Israel right away, who would not have been with them? Moshe. Moshe wasn't destined to enter the land. Why not? Why couldn't he? For another time, Parshas Chukas. But Moshe wasn't going to join them. Had they entered right away, they would have been sons of Moshe, no Moshe. So the lecha, in the Shlach lecha, the one silver lining, the one benefit was 38 more years with Moshe. 38 more years they were able to get with Moshe. And that was the lecha. There was a silver lining. A silver lining. I think in this Rav David Feinstein you can see one of our phrases that we come back to in Emunah Shir all the time. We're going to talk about it tomorrow morning, particularly addressing the countless incredibly inspiring texts and emails I've gotten from Jews running in and out of bomb shelters, from those who were supposed to have returned from their seminary year or yeshiva year, for those who were supposed to make a simcha, and they're not able to go where they want, and they're writing, I am where I'm meant to be. A Jew is never stuck. Embrace your place. You are where you're meant to be. So here the Jewish people are spending 38 extra years in the desert. All because of what? Shlach lecha anashim. Because the Meraglim blew it. They messed up. They came back and they gave a negative report. For those 38 years, they could have walked around saying, can't believe you did this. Such regret. Why'd you have to do that? You messed everything up. We're still here in the desert. But that's not the way a Jew lives. A Jew lives saying, we're accountable. It was a mistake. We have to learn from it. We have to make sure to never repeat it or do it again. But you know what? Now that it happened, we are where we're meant to be. And where's the silver lining? What's the lecha in where we are? That we're with Moshe. 38 years with Moshe. A girl reached out from a particular seminary, asked if I could do a Zoom. I don't know if I will or combine it with the Emunah Shir. But one of the messages, whichever way I get it across, is the lecha. If you're stuck, but you're stuck in Israel, okay, there were summer plans. You were going to come back. You were going to work. You were going to go to camp. You had a family vacation. You were going to start dating. But the lecha, where can we find the silver lining when we have to embrace our place? When yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh, where's the lecha? Says Rav David Feinstein, the lecha in the Shlach lecha was 38 more years they got with Moshe. Otherwise, that would have been it had they entered the land right away. That doesn't justify. It was a mistake. They were accountable. You have to learn from it. But there's a silver lining when you bring the attitude of always embracing your place. The Ger Rosh Hashiva of Shol Alter also addresses this. Vayikra Moshe Moshe ben Nun Yoshua. Back to Pasuk Tes Zayin. Moshe calls Hosea and adds the Yud and gives them the name Yoshua. And Rashi here explains why. Ka Yoshiacha me'atzas meraglim. May God save you from the plot, the conspiracy of the meraglim. Many Mefarshim point out, says of Shol Alter, that we already saw his name as Yoshua earlier. Where do we see that? In the context of the war with Amalek, back in Shmos Parakid Zayin, and Cheta Egel, twice, when Yoshua leads the army in the war with Amalek, and after the terrible mistake of the Cheta Egel, he's already referred to in both those contexts as Yehoshua with the Yud. So how can the Torah tell us that right now Moshe changes his name and says, I'm setting you off on a difficult mission, and therefore I want to give you all the koach that you'll need. I'm adding a letter to your name. You're no longer Hosea, but now you're Yehoshua. He was already Yoshua. So the Rishonim, the Rashbam, the Chizkuni, they answer that although his name was already Yehoshua before the story of the Meraglim, Moshe was trying to impress on him that he had been called that as a tefillah to be saved from the Meraglim. It's true. Earlier, already you were called Yehoshua, but you need to know that your name itself is a prayer that you be spared from their influence, that you not give in to that peer pressure. But what was unique about the Chet HaMeraglim that Moshe had to remind Yehoshua? Why now? When it came to Amalek, he didn't remind him that his name is Yehoshua. When it came to the Chet HaEgel, he didn't remind him that his name is Yehoshua. So why now? What's so special about this? What's so pernicious or dangerous about this that Moshe has to remind him, by the way, your name is Yehoshua, be careful. So it says Rav Shol Alter, says the Ger Rosh Hashiva Shlita, Amalek's attack on the Jewish people was a spiritual religious attack. It was an attack on our Kedusha, on our holiness. It was a spiritual war. Pasuk says, Milchama Hashem ba'Amalek, God maintains a war against Amalek. We don't understand it. But with regarding, so Yoshua knew Amalek was attacking our spirit, our soul, our holiness, our sanctity. Yoshua understood on his own that a war like that can only be won with Hashem's assistance. Just like the Gemara in Kedushin explains, you cannot defeat the Yetzer Hara without Hashem's help. So Yoshua understood Amalek is wickedness, is evil. And you can't defeat evil who are trying to attack the spirituality, the soul, your religious values without Hashem's help. Yoshua was fully cognizant. Chet HaEgel also. Chet HaEgel was a machination of the Yetzer Hara. Chet HaEgel was the evil inclination convincing us to go astray. And it needed to be fought how? Melchemes Hashem. But by all appearances, the journey of the Meraglim was no cause for concern. After all its members, the Meraglim, were the 12 heads of the tribes, upstanding people who wanted to just scout the land. What could go wrong? What could be bad? And that's why Moshe impressed upon him at the time of the message, Ka Yoshiacha me'atzas Meraglim. Yoshua, what you think you're setting out on is benign. It's innocuous. Nothing particularly dangerous. You need to remember, your name is Yehoshua. Hashem should spare you. There's a hidden conspiracy, a hidden Yetzer Hara on this journey. And a hidden Yetzer Hara is more dangerous than the open one. Only with Hashem's help, says Moshe, can you be saved from the Meraglim's scheming. That's one of the tactics of the Yetzer Hara, to be hidden. So it's exactly what made this look so not dangerous is what made it dangerous, says the Ger Rosh Hashiva. Chet HaEgel, on his own, Yoshua saw something very bad is going on. The Amalek, Yoshua saw on his own there's an attack against our ideology and our religious identity. But the Meraglim, what's the problem? So a Jew needs to know that even when you're going with what looks to be admirable, upstanding people, there's a particular danger, and therefore he changes his name, Yehoshua. Now you have to daven to Hashem that it all goes right. You have to be very careful. Perkid Gimel, Pasuk Chaf Beis. Vayalu b'Negev vayivu ad Chevron. They came up from the south. They reached Chevron, and they run into Achiman Sheshai Talma Yelidei Hanak. Chevron Sheva Shanim L'Nei Tzoan Mitzrayim. Chevron, and Rashi here tells us when they arrive at Chevron that why Who takes this detour to Hebron? Who's on this detour? None other than Kalev. And why does he take this detour? Why does he take this detour? To daven. Says Rashi, Kalev levado halach sham. Kalev alone went there. And he spreads himself out. He davens over the kivrei avos, the graves of our forefathers. And he says, give me the fortitude, give me the strength to not give in, to not succumb to the peer pressure. To not succumb to the peer pressure. Says the Tefer Shmuel, wonders of Shmuel Berenbaum. Tzarachian, Afa Pisha Kalev Asa Davar Gadol Espala B'Yer Chevron. Kalev, of course, did something remarkable by praying. You see that. Where did Bibi go hours before the initial attack, the preemptive attack, the attack that was so highly coordinated and precise? Everyone right now, we don't need 30 years, is saying that it's greater than the 6-day war. What I always heard my whole life about the miracle of the 6-day war and what Israel pulled off in those opening hours in ways we barely know 5%, and that 5% is enough to know it's extraordinary. And where did the prime minister, the leader of the Jewish people, go hours before he launched the attack? He went to the Kotel to daven. Under the guise, he was with the president of Argentina. It was innocuous. He was heading off on vacation. It was part of the deflection, part of the distraction. But we know the real reason. You know, there's pictures all over the internet. I don't know if it's real or fake. It doesn't matter. That the note that Bibi put in the Kotel said, Hein am kilavi yakum. Foreboding for what was about to happen. That's the Jewish people. Hein am kilavi yakum. That's the Jewish people. So where did Kalev go? We're about to set out on a mission. We're launching a mission. Where does he go to Hebron? To daven. To daven. And what does Rashi tell us? Because Kalev went there to daven, what did he earn? What was he given? The city of Hebron. Kalev was granted the city of Hebron. That's it. You daven someplace, you get it. That's it. That's as simple as it goes. Says Shmuel Berenbaum. Gemara Brachas tells us, whoever has a set place to daven, God is by your side. And when a person dies who had a makom kavua where they davened, not all over, and not walking around the back, and not wearing out the carpet, and not changing seats, and not changing minyanim, but this is the minyan I go to, this is the seat that I sit in, I have a certain consistency and constancy, dependability, reliability to me. So when that person passes away, we say, wow, that person is an offspring of Avram Avinu. So how do you know that? Because it says, Vayashkim Avram Babuka, because Avram got up, he davened in a set place. We are a student, the progeny, a disciple of Avram, if we have a set place. Says Rishon Berenbaum. What's so great about davening in a set place? Avram is praised. Having a set place to daven. Rabbeinu Yonah, by the way, understands this. Not only in shul. In fact, in shul, our shul's policy, as most have and should have, is that you don't have a set seat. You're not entitled to kick someone out of your seat. This isn't JetBlue and you got the aisle and someone's in it and you have to replace them. Makam kavua means dalad amos. Draw a 6-foot circumference around where you want to sit. 2 seats in front, 2 seats to the left, 2 seats behind. Find another seat near where you sit. That's also called the makam kavua. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, all of shul's your makam kavua. All of shul's the place that you set to daven. When the Gemara, when our rabbis tell us set a place to daven, they mean in your house. In your house. In our home, we have a wall, happens to have Jerusalem stone. We have a shtender. We have a sign that says Mizrach. That's where the Siddurim are. Anyone who's to daven in the home, that's a set place to daven. A set place. Don't daven sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes in the living room, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes while walking around, putting the slippers back in the closet. Sometimes there's a set place, changes your mentality. But that's such a big deal that Avram Avinu is so lauded, and a person who passes away who had a set place is called a disciple of Avram. And what earned Kalev Hebron just because he chose to daven there? What's going on over here? Says Rav Shmuel Berenbaum the following. A set place to daven doesn't just mean physically you have a set place. It means inyan kviyas makam u'masha margish ha'adam she'makam ha'tfila eina rak emtzai l'tfilaso elu hu margish she'ikar makomo v'ritzono lius kavua b'makom hatfila. Set place means this is my default. This is where I want to be. This is where I am. When I live my life, it's interruptions to it. But the default of where I am is in that conversation. Someone told me a couple weeks ago, it's possible they're sitting here right now. They were sitting having lunch. Their husband, each of them were reading on their own. She said to her husband, "Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt what you're reading?" And he said to her, so romantic, and they're not 22 years old. He said to her, "My whole life is a conversation with you. I was reading was interrupting that conversation. Of course, you could tell me whatever you want." Not this the most beautiful thing? You're not interrupting my reading or what I'm doing. My whole life is a conversation with you. If I'm reading or doing something else, it's interrupting that conversation. Such a beautiful, beautiful, what a bar for marriage, where we should want to go. Says Rav Shmuel Berenbaum, that's what the Gemara means, kol hakovea makom l'tefila. It means your conversation with Hashem should be your makom. That's my whole life is one conversation with Hashem. I got to go to work. I got to do laundry. I got to cook dinner. I've got to also talk to other people and interrupt that conversation. But as soon as I'm done, where do I go back? What do I revert to? Where do I pick up? The conversation with Hashem that is my life. My whole life is an ongoing conversation with Him that gets interrupted. And that's what it means. So when Kalev goes to Hebron to daven, and he begins to have this conversation with Hashem there, that says, this is my life. This is my makom. Afa pisha Kalev halach b'shlichuso shel Moshe. He said, Lefiza nuchalav and kan etzel Kalev. Kishahalach l'spal b'Hebron. When he goes to daven there, here gish kvias makom. He said, this is my place. I feel Hashem here. I'm in conversation with Hashem here. This is my home. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to return. This is what I want to revert to. This is my anchor. This is the anchor of my life. When you make that set place to daven, you say, I go to work, I go to gym, I go to the supermarket, I go all over, but where do I want to come back to? What's my anchor? My spouse, my children, my home, Hashem. That's my anchor. That's my safe space. That's what I want to return to. That's my place of refuge. So when Kalev felt, he perceived, Hebron is my place, Hashem says, I feel you, brother. You feel me here, I feel you. It's yours. This is going to be our special place. This is our shared home now together. This is what it's really all about. Perek Yudalad Pasuk Zayin. Spies come back and they report. There's national hysteria. Top of page 804. Kalev interrupts. The people can't be placated. Yoshua and Kalev tore their garments. They spoke to the entire people. They said, the land that we passed through, it's ma'od, ma'od. Tova ha'aretz, ma'od, ma'od. What does it mean, land to be ma'od, ma'od? Says the Ramban, lahachish hadiba, lemor, she'eino chalas yoshvea. They're trying to contradict the poor report that was given, the misinformation, fake news. Essentially, Yeshua Kalev get up and they say, fake news. Fake news. Diba ra'as, fake news. She'eino chalas yoshvea. This is not a land that eats its inhabitants. Ki avir tov. The air is amazing. V'aretz avas chalav udvash. What are you talking about? Don't say that if you move there, you can't make it. You know, how do you make a small fortune in Israel? Start with a large one. That's an old joke. The terrible things that people say, chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. They come to correct it. Havir tov. Amazon now delivers in Israel. You can get Heinz ketchup in Israel. Every American sugar cereal you can get now in Israel. I was talking to someone last week who was here from Israel, unfortunately still here from Israel. And it used to be in our day, you know, you'd pack your duffel for our years in Israel. You'd bring all these things that you couldn't get in Israel. There's nothing you can't get in Israel. In fact, the food's better. Everything's better. Nothing you can't get in Israel. ESPN, it's all in Israel. You got a sports center, you get it all in Israel. There's nothing you can't get. So the Kalev and Yeshua get up and they say, what are you talking about? Havir Tov. It's a magnificent environment. The air is amazing. It's flowing with milk and honey. From the Ramban, Nira Shehuk Shelo, Yeshua. Why'd they have to say Tova Haaretz? Ma'od, Ma'od. Why did they have to repeat? The land is very, very good. Did the second very add to the first very? Very means very. So what's very, very good? Tov haaretz, ma'od ma'od. Why wasn't enough to say Tov haaretz, ma'od? And that's what the Ramban comes to answer. Hutzruchu lahachish hadi, but they were coming to contradict two things. Ma'od shavir tov. Number one, the air is great. And number two, it's flowing with milk and honey. Where else do we find the words ma'od ma'od? When you see words, they should trigger hyperlinks. Where else do you see ma'od ma'od? Mishnah Maseches Avos. A person should be exceedingly humble. Ma'od ma'od. Don't just be very humble, be very, very humble. V'nir l'far shezer of Druk and his Eish Tamid, ki rak mishu ma'od ma'od shafar ruach yachol l'rosh tov ha'aretz ma'od ma'od. What's the connection? When they say the land is very, very good, to our rabbi saying, be very, very humble. If I prepared the Parsha Shir better, I would have presented it as one theme. Because we saw it at the beginning. Tifer Shmuel says, why are we accountable? When we're not listening and learning from everything being broadcast around us. The end of last week's Parsha, they should have seen what happened when Miriam wasn't careful with her words, and they should have learned we have to be careful with our words. Person has to have a growth mindset. Rabbi Sachs said, person has to have a growth mindset. Don't be fixed, don't be finished. The change of Yeshua's name indicates person is always growing. And now the third, Rav Druk. And Rav Druk says, what's the connection between the land is very, very good and be very, very humble? Because who sees the truth? What investigator comes back with an accurate report? The one who's humble. If you're humble, you'll see the truth. But if you come in arrogantly thinking you have all the answers, then you're going to come in and you're going to project your predispositions, what you're predisposed to think, your judgment on what you see. You're seeing through a filter you're not seeing clearly. Who sees clearly with no filter? If you're very, very humble, you'll see the truth of what's in front of you. But if you're arrogant and you think you have all the answers, you're going to miss what's right in front of you, and you're going to come in with an arrogant attitude. Perek Yudalad Pasuk Ches. If you bring us to this land, Im Chafetz Banu Hashem. What is Im Chafetz Banu Hashem? Hashem, if you want us. Im Chafetz Banu Hashem. What does that mean? Pasuk Ches. If Hashem desires us, He'll bring us to this land and give it to us. A land that flows with milk and honey. L'chora kasha. Ma nafka mina Im Chafetz Banu Hashem. Kevan she'amar meragun ki chazaku memenu. Ma yoel Im Chafetz Banu Hashem. Ask for Shmuel Berenbaum, what do you mean if Hashem desires us? Afilu chavetz banu ma yoil. They said chazaku mimenu. They said they're stronger than we are. We can't conquer. This is above us. So how does it have to say if Hashem wants us? And Yeshua and Kalev don't set that straight. They don't say it's not true. You're claiming that the others are stronger. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, they're too strong. You're crazy. World War III will break out. Russia and China are going to get involved. You can't do it. And the answer wasn't, it's not true. We're stronger. You don't know what the Mossad's got planned. You don't understand how powerful we are. That wasn't the answer. What was the answer? Im chafetz banu Hashem. Well, what does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? Also, more fundamentally, right? This is a nation that all just experienced 10 plagues, a splitting of a sea. They saw extraordinary miracles. And this is where they draw the line. They experienced unbelievable miracles. They stood at the base of a mountain and God revealed himself and spoke. And now they're saying, Lo nuchal la'alos, ki chazaku mimenu. We can't go up. Hamas, they've got Kalashnikovs and they've got jeeps and bicycles. We can't do it. You just saw 10 plagues. You just saw a splitting of a sea. You just stood at the moment of revelation. And now you're intimidated from that? V'yesh says of Shmuel Berenbaum, Shamaraglim tanu dekeven sha'anashim hayu giborim, v'gam b'nei anak ra'inu sham, haynu tzrichim l'nisim gedolim k'kriyas yamsuf l'natzeach osam. V'savar she'enenu ru'im she'asal l'nisim gedolim k'kriyas yamsuf. We're not worthy. We used up all of our miracles. We used up all of our merits. It's going to take a miracle. And you know what? I don't know if God's got any miracles left for us. I don't know if we're worthy. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if we could bank on it. So what are you going to answer? No, God could do anything. Yeah, but the whole premise of the problem is not questioning whether God could do anything. What was it questioning? Are we worthy? Will he for us? Is he going to come through? I can't see a way out. Kadosh Baruch Hu Yachol Nasa Machmel Hashem, Batzasam Yamai Mikra, V'lachein Yitzruchu Yoshuv Kol Hashem Chafetz Banu Hashem. Kevin Sheish Kirva Gedola Beinenu LaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'vada Yasel Anu Nisam Lamanu. What's their answer? Is not we're stronger, we've got more Air Force, we've got more bombs, we've got more bullets. The answer was not we're smarter, we're better, we got beepers, we interrupted their supply chain, we've got Mossad, they've built a drone base in Iran. The answer was not disputing the facts. What was the answer? You think that Hashem's not going to can't bring another miracle, we don't deserve, we don't merit, maybe he doesn't have any left. You know what our answer is? Im chafetz banu Hashem, if Hashem wants us, if we're close to him, then nothing is beyond him. Just sit back and watch what's going to happen. Then believe and trust. We have to do our part. Don't just sit back. We do our part. Our holy and precious and heroic soldiers of the IDF, our incredible pilots. Could you be more proud? The 2,000-year image of the meek, weak, pale Jew who can't defend himself and goes like sheep to the slaughter. We've got the most precise, greatest pilots on the planet right now, pulling off missions no one would believe. I don't know about you, I've been getting goosebumps when I'm watching non-Jewish military experts interviewed on the news who are gushing in saying, I don't know how the Mossad pulled off what they did. I don't know how they got it done. Pinpoint holes in the wall. That general was sleeping in his bed. They knew which floor, which apartment, which bed. No civilian casualty. They took him out in Iran in his sleep. The Mossad was operating. If Hashem wants, Im chafetz banu Hashem, if Hashem wants, if we have a kirva, bevada yasel anu nisim. K'shekla Yisrael b'tza'ar, when the Jewish people are in pain, Kadosh Baruch Hu gam kein b'tza'ar. Hashem is with us. Hashem is with us in that pain. Hashem is also under attack. Hashem is also a victim of the enemy. I mentioned this past Shabbos. It was a Rashi on last week's Parsha. Again, you have to live with the times, says the Alter Rebbe. When we sing every Monday, every Shabbos, when we put away the Torah, Kum Hashem v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha. When we take out the Torah, when we say misanecha, who are the enemy? What did Rashi in last week's Parsha say? Elu sonei Yisrael. These are the enemies of the Jewish people. Anyone who hates the Jewish people hates the creator of the universe. Hashem goes with us. If you hate the Jewish people, if you're an enemy of the Jewish people, you are declaring war on God. And I got to tell you, spoiler alert, you're never going to win a war against God. We know the way that this story ends. We know the way every one of our stories ends, and it ends with us winning. The reason that we're concerned, we daven from the bottom of our hearts, is at what cost? What price will we have to pay? How many times will they run into bomb shelters, wake children in the middle of the night, assist elderly? God forbid how many casualties, how many buildings will be bombed. That's the only part we don't know. But how it ends that we win, that we know. We've won the last 2,000 years. We're still here to testify. And that we know. Because misanecha, elu sonei Yisrael, those who hate the Jewish people also hate sonei mishe amar v'haya olam. They hate the one who spoke and the world came to be. When we're in tsar, k'shekla Yisrael b'tzar, Kadosh Baruch Hu gam kein b'tzar. The mitzad kirva shekla Yisrael Kadosh Baruch Hu yasa b'shvilanu k'mo she'osa b'shvil atzmo kaviyachol. So when Hashem is doing for us, He's doing for Himself. He's defending His name, His brand, His vision, His blueprint for this world. He's with us. He's on our side. He's on our side. He's with us. He does it through our Air Force pilots, our IDF, our courageous leadership who called the shots, our Mossad, our intelligence. He's doing it through them, but it's Him. Ha'geula l'klal Yisrael u'geula ha'kadosh baruch hu ba'atzmo. Writes Shmuel Berenbaum years ago. Zatzal. The redemption of the Jewish people is the redemption of God Himself. The redemption of God Himself. And therefore He comes and He stands up on our behalf. We turn to him, we rely on him. And that's why Kalev and Yoshua, there are always detractors. There are always cynics. There are always doubters. There are always spies instead of tourists. And they're compelling and they're persuasive and they're trying to change public opinion. And that's what the spies did. 10 out of 12 got public opinion on their side. And the people cried the whole night and said, we can't do it. It'll never happen. If on October 6th I would have told you that in a year and a half, Hezbollah will be decimated. So much so that when Iran is at war and message to Hezbollah, join the fight, Hezbollah sent an email to Iran. I mean, how degrading. An email said, sorry, we're sitting this one out, you're on your own. Iran was banking on all their proxies that they had spent billions of dollars on, that if they would ever be attacked, Israel could never sustain Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the militias of Iraq, Syria. If on October 6th I would have told you, Syria is no longer, and in fact they told Israel, feel free to use our airspace in bombing Iran. If I would have told you on October 6th, Hezbollah decimated. Beepers blew up in the pants of all the Hezbollah fighters, and in a moment, decimated. Hamas, still fighting, but decimated. Decimated. The militias in Iraq, on the retreat. And that Iran, at the very beginning, before they even knew what hit them, their military has been taken out. And that the entire Middle East has changed in a year. And you would have said, impossible. Lo nuchal. We can't do it. Will never happen. How many casualties? At what cost? What world war? Will never happen. But you know, when Hashem is a target, when Hashem is a victim, when they're declaring war with Hashem, nothing is beyond him. Kodesh Baruch Hu is fighting this battle, and he's fighting this battle with us. And that's what Yoshua and Kalev have to fight, the fake news. They have to fight those who are trying to win the public opinion in the wrong direction when they say we can't. And they have to come out. And what's the argument? They don't get into the details of why we have military superiority, because that's not what it's about. What's their ultimate response and answer? Im chafetz banu Hashem. If Hashem wants us to win, you're not going to believe what's about to happen. You're not going to believe what you're about to see. You're not going to believe how this ends. So there's much more in the Parsha I wanted to get to. Yom Lashana, Yom Lashana. They gave the negative report, so they wandered 40 years. Why'd they wander 40 years? How long was the negative report? 1 day. So if you're going to calculate the punishment based on how long the negative report was, they should wander for 1 day. Why do they wander for 1 year for the 1 day they gave a negative report? Why do they wander for 40 years?
40 days.
What's the 40 days? 40 days they investigated the land, but they only reported negatively 1. So they should have wandered 1 year. Why do they wander 40 years? So we'll learn next year Mirz Hashem in Yerushalayim together. But Rav Druk and Rav Asher Weiss both say the same answer. You know why? Because the spies' mistake was not the report they gave when they got back. That was 1 day. It's that all 40 days when they went, they were looking for the bad. We'll bring it full circle. This is now the 4th or 5th. Again, if I were doing this right, if I were a decent teacher, I would have given you the whole theme, beginning to end, all these ideas, and showed you that's what's going on. This whole parsha is about, don't come in with predisposed ideas. Don't come in and project. Be a student. Be a tourist. Learn, listen, extrapolate, extract. Be a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. The spies went in with a fixed mindset. They said, here's the deal. We'll go through the motions. We'll spend 40 days, but I'm telling you right now how it's going to turn out. So when they got back and gave the negative report, they were punished 40 years for 40 days because the mistake wasn't 1 day. How long was the mistake? 40 days. Because all 40 days, there was confirmation bias. They were biased about what they were going to see. So what they saw confirmed what they were already biased to see. When you're going as a spy, you'll find what's bad. If you're going as a tourist, you'll see what's great. Our mission, like Kalev and Yoshua were the only ones who understood, our mission, live life like tourists, a growth mindset. Don't go lachpor or l'ragel, go lasur. Go tour the world and life, see what it has to offer, all the positive. And next year we'll cover challah and tzitzis. I wanted to get to challah and tzitzis so badly, but Amir Hashem next year. Should be a day of besoros tovos, Yeshuas v'nechamos.
Oh yeah.